Today I'm sharing with you a recipe, but I really wish that I could share the smell with you as well, because as I was making this, from the moment I started to grind the Australian native bush spices, my house smelled amazing. There is nothing like anise myrtle, there is nothing like lemon myrtle. You've got to try them to believe them. So today's recipe is pork belly with beautiful crispy crackling and a spice rub. Now that spice rub is going to go black, but it's not burned. It's caramelized brown sugar and it is there just to set off those herbs perfectly. It is delicious. So let's get straight into the recipe. First of all, you'll need some pork belly. Now the size that I used was around 1 kilogram. If you use a larger one, you may need a little more spice rub. Ideally, you're going for 2 or 3 mils thick of spices over the base of the pork belly when you get to that stage of the recipe. So here's the ingredients. You need your pork belly. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of anise myrtle. You need about a teaspoon of Tasmanian pepperberry. You can substitute normal pepper for that, but if you can get pepperberry, it's so much better. 1 tablespoon of lemon myrtle. 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now I like to use dark brown sugar because it's just a little bit more bitter. It's not as sweet and it caramelizes beautifully. But basically what you're going to need is however much anise myrtle plus lemon myrtle you've got, you need exactly the same amount of brown sugar, because what that brown sugar is going to do is going to liquefy and moisten up those dry spices while you're cooking. The other thing you'll need is salt and oil. You'll need those for making sure you get the crispiest crackling possible. You'll also need to give yourself enough time so that you can leave the spice rub on the pork for at least an hour. I left mine the other day for 3 or 4 hours and it was perfect, but you could probably leave it for a full day while you're at work if you wanted to. Okay, let's get into it. The first thing you need to do is place your pork belly on a rack in the sink and score the skin with a sharp knife. After you've done that, you're going to pour boiling water over the skin until the scoring marks shrink back. What you're doing is you're starting to cook that rind on top, which will make sure that it becomes really lovely and crispy. You're going to pat that with paper towel to dry it as much as you can. You don't want any moisture there if you can help it. Once you've done that, put the pork belly skin side up and uncovered in the fridge. You want it uncovered because the air in the fridge is going to dry it out. While that's in the fridge, add anise myrtle and Tasmanian pepperberry to a spice grinder. If you don't have a spice grinder, a mortar and pestle is fine, it's just harder work. You're going to grind that to a fine powder, the finer the better. Then you're going to add lemon myrtle to the fine powder in a small bowl. In goes your dark brown sugar into the mix, and then you've got to mix it thoroughly. The more you mix it, the better spread you're going to get on those flavors on your pork. So you want to spread that flavor evenly, so make sure you mix that really thoroughly at that stage. Get your pork belly out of the fridge, put the skin side down and pat the spice rub into the meat with clean, dry hands. You really need to make sure your hands are clean and dry, otherwise that spice rub's going to stick, and obviously you want to have clean hands when you're cooking. Then you're going to put the pork belly back in the fridge. You're going to leave it this time with the spice rub up so that it sinks down into that pork, and you need to leave that for about 1 to 8 hours, minimum 1 hour. I wouldn't leave it longer than 8 hours. When it's ready to come out of the fridge, you want to turn your pork belly over carefully and sprinkle salt onto the skin. That's a personal taste thing, as much salt or as little salt as you like. Just get some oil. I like to use a good quality Australian olive oil. You pour that over the skin and over the salt. Rub the oil into the skin with clean, dry hands again. You're going to preheat your oven to 200 degrees and you're going to cook it for 20 minutes at that heat. Now that's so that you start the process of crackling up that crackling, but you don't want to leave it at 200 degrees for too long because then your crackle's going to form before your meat cooks, and you want to give time for the fat to render and the fat to come through. That fat's going to pick up some of those spices and help liquefy. After 20 minutes, you're going to turn it down to 180 degrees and you're going to cook it for 40 minutes per 500 grams. So I had a 1 kilo pork belly, so I cooked it for 80 minutes. If it's bigger, you're going to need to cook it for longer. If it's smaller, you're going to have to cook it for less time. And then you get this amazing succulent pork belly. It's quite juicy. It's got this crust on the outside and it might look burnt, but it doesn't taste burnt. It tastes delicious and it tastes just as good the next day. We had a little bit left over and it didn't even last till next dinner time because we all couldn't help just going and picking at it. It is so Moorish. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please share. I'd love to get monetized so that I can make more videos for you. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in Australian native food plants, or bush tucker as we often call it, I have an ebook available in my Etsy shop, which I'll put the link to down in the description. It's just a really brief introduction to 52 different Australian food plants. I'm also going to put down there a link to my playlist, which has all my other Australian native food plant recipes, lots of lemon myrtle in there. And if you'd like to help me get monetized, please subscribe, like, and go and watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Keep on growing.